Somewhat ironically, given that Maiden are one of my two absolute favourite bands on the planet, I'm a late bloomer of a Maiden fan. The first song I ever heard was Can I Play With Madness, stumbled across it by chance on the radio back in the day, and that led me to pick up my first album of theirs, and that was Power Slave. And I've been a lifetime fan ever since. As a result, their entire collection spans the shelves of our household, special editions, live DVDs, been to see them, took my daughter, took my mum, but we're getting ahead of ourselves. I really can't imagine there's anyone tuning in that hasn't heard of Maiden, but just in case, we better cover some quick facts. Maiden were actually formed in 1975 by their bassist and bandleader Steve Harris, and they came charging out of the gate just 5 years later with their self-titled 1980 debut, literally changing the landscape of metal and rock forever with their dual, intricate, harmonised guitar leads, the galloping rhythms, and their literary lyrics. All of these elements are immediately personified in their classic, colossal take on Phantom of the Opera. Let's check that out. Set the scene for the track with this tone of absolute menace. This is note so mean. Then you get the main lick. And then make it more tense. Stuff of legend. And since then, they've gone on to release 16 studio albums, countless live albums and DVDs, flown around the world in their own plane, performed over 2,500 live shows. Maiden's achievements are staggering. But for most fans, they really came into their own when they recruited Bruce Dickinson as their vocalist and released their mighty third album, The Number of the Beast. The Number of the Beast was Maiden's third album, and their first with Bruce leading the microphone. It was also their first #1 album they ever had in the UK, charting top 10 in many other countries, back in the day when you had actual music played by musicians on real instruments in the charts. The title track, somewhat ironically when you actually read the lyrics, was full of controversy, particularly in the United States, where the conservative parents movement decided the band were promoting Satanism, leading the world's youth astray, and famously burned their albums in the streets. Of course, all this did was give the band, the album, and the tour at the time free publicity and a lifetime's worth of notoriety. But what's actually going on here? Let's take a look. The song opens with its iconic spoken adaptation of a couple of verses from the book of Revelation, the closing book of the Bible. It's actually Revelation 12, verse 12, and Revelation chapter 13, verse 18. Revelation 12, verse 12, the second half reads, "Woe to the earth and the sea, because the devil has gone down to you. He is filled with fury, because he knows that his time is short." And Iron Maiden's text says, "Woe to you, O earth and sea, for the devil sends the beast with wrath, because he knows his time is short." And then 13, verses 18, again, equally famous, read, "If anyone has insight, let him calculate the number of the beast, for it is man's number. His number is 666. And Iron Maiden, it says, "Let him who hath understanding calculate the number of the beast, for it is a human number. The number is 666. The Maiden have iconically adapted those verses into one of the most powerful and potent opening narrations for a piece of rock music that we've ever seen. Not only that, we also need to take a moment to appreciate the iconic riff that opens this track.
I left alone, my mind was blank. I needed time to think, to get the memories from my mind. What did I see? Can I believe that what I saw that night was real and not just fantasy. Just what I saw.
For the guitar nerds out there, it's just moving through the roots of the major scale into the third, stepping up to the fourth and the fifth. It creates this relentless sense of doom as the music is marching towards you, getting lower and deeper, and then returning. There's no escape. It's a really brilliant musical construction, masterful piece of music. Lyrically, the song tells a nightmarish story, literally inspired by a nightmare that Steve Harris had after watching Omen 2, part of the Damien series of horror movies. It's inspired by a modern evangelical's literal reading of the Bible's references to the Antichrist. Essentially, it's a fanciful tale of the Antichrist as a devil's son who tries and fails to stop Christ's second coming. Harris puts it this way in the lyrics. Was all this for real or just some kind of hell? 666, the number of the beast. Hell and fire spawned to be released. This can't go on. I must inform the law. Can this be real or just some crazy dream? But I feel drawn towards the chanting hordes. Seem to mesmerize, can't avoid their eyes. 666, the number of the beast. 666, the one for you and me. The ironic thing here is that Maiden are presenting it as a cautionary tale, and they're literally telling the same story that the American fundamentalist movement were themselves telling at that time. It's an exceedingly literal and illogical reading of some really inspired biblical texts. But that's a topic for a whole separate podcast. I'll put a link to my other channel in the chat. Regardless, this iconic song catapulted Maiden to even greater heights of both stardom and notoriety. But they have much more to say than just this. Before moving off this album, we need to dive into its epic closing track, which brings us face to face with the thoughts of a condemned man reflecting on his life while awaiting his execution. We're not told what he's done, whether he's been rightly or wrongly convicted. We just get to follow his thoughts as he faces and overcomes the surmounting terror of knowing that death is coming, as he voices his bitterness towards God and the universe. As the guards march me out to the courtyard, somebody cries from a cell, God be with you. But if there is a God, why has he let me go? I recall riding the train to work one morning, sometime after picking up this album, looking out the window as the train wound its way around the absolutely gorgeous view that's Wellington City's harbour on a Sunday morning. As much as I was enjoying the scenery and the view and the sunrise, I was absolutely lost in the instrumental sections of the song and the harmonised guitar lines that make up its sonic signature. I recall riding the train to work one morning, sometime after picking up this album, and I was looking out the window as the train was working its way around the tracks in an absolutely gorgeous view that's Wellington Harbour in the morning with the sun coming up and the sky changing colours. As much as I was enjoying the scenery, I was absolutely lost in the instrumental section on this final track and the dual harmonised lines that make up the song's sonic signature. It was mesmerising. I've always found something really profound for me in the experience of hearing dual harmonised intricate guitar lines played in unison at high speed. Just the sheer fact that three guitarists, a bass player and the drummer, can all get in sync gives me hope for the human race. We can unify, we can harmonise, and we can do it over profound, intricate, complicated guitar lines. I know the dreamer in me gets easily carried away, but honestly, listening to this stuff restores my hope in humanity. Anyway, back to the lyrics. In the final verses, we find our protagonist at peace with his fate and with his faith in his immortal soul. He puts it this way in the closing verses. Mark my words. Please believe my soul lives on. Please don't worry now that I've gone. I've gone beyond to see the truth. And when you know your time is close at hand, maybe then you'll begin to understand life down here is just a strange illusion. Hello, Big Iron Maiden. Musically and lyrically, this song is truly epic. It's absolutely classic Maiden, with changes in pace and tone and tempo and mood and feel that shift and perfectly mirror the musical and lyrical landscape. It's heady, epic stuff, but Maiden were only just getting started. Let's carry on. From there, Maiden return with 1983's Peace of Mind. It's another epic slab of classic metal, this time with themes of war, with Where Eagles Dare, Die With Your Boots On, The Trooper of course, ancient mythology and the flight of Icarus, mysticism with Revelations, and the development of humanity with Quest for Fire to Tame a Land. It's just fantastic stuff. For a long time, this was my favourite Maiden album. This was also the first of the enhanced releases that I picked up. They have the art on the spines that combine to make Eddie's face. Awesome stuff. Everyone's grandmother loves that. But the sound continued to evolve, and there were some awesome surprises for me here. I remember being blown away hearing the flight of Icarus for the first time with its Uriah Heep vibe and the layered vocals. I think Bruce harmonising with himself in the chorus. Growing up in his 20s, Uriah Heep was my father's favourite band. All of the neighbours and the whole street were entertained with them whether they wanted it or not. So instantly hearing this was some immediate nostalgia vibes for me. As I said, this was my favourite Maiden album for a long, long time. However, it's quite rightly frequently dwarfed by the colossal track and its own telling of The Charge of the Light Brigade and The Trooper. And for good reason. Let's check it out. Harmonised leads, its classic rhythmic horse galloping rhythm, its epic lyrics, the Trooper risks eclipsing everything else on the album and has become an absolute live staple for a reason. But Iron Maiden have got much more to say. Track 2, Revelations. It's Maiden's ode to Aleister Crowley and the occultic world that he inhabited and wrote about. But even in the telling of that dark tale, they begin by lifting the opening verse of G.K. Chesterton's classic hymn, O God of Earth and Altar. Check out the lyrics. O God of Earth and Altar, bow down and hear our cry. Our earthly rulers falter, our people drift and die. The walls of gold entomb us, the swords of scorn divide. Take not thy thunder from us, but take away our pride. It's an epic statement, both musically and lyrically. May God deliver us from our pride, particularly the pride of those who set themselves up to be the heralds of enlightenment to us. And this will be a recurring theme through Maiden's work, and it brings us on to the next two albums. We'll start with Power Slave. The themes that were established on Peace of Mind will continue throughout Maiden's career, and they echo strongly on their next album, Power Slave. The title track takes us into the mind and the eyes of the pharaoh and the demands he makes against his own mortality. Tell me why I had to be a power slave. I don't want to die. I'm a god. Why can't I live on? When the life giver dies, all around is laid waste. And in my last hour, I'm a slave to the power of death. Mortality comes even for ancient pharaohs. In this life, we can use our power to crush the weak. We can claim enlightenment or set ourselves up as gods, but in the end, death stalks us all. In this track, Maiden take us right into the psyche of a human tyrant, raging against his own mortality. I don't want to die, I'm a god, why can't I live on? Well, he isn't a god. None of us are, and that's the point. It's epic stuff that goes right to the heart of the human psyche. As I mentioned, Power Slave was actually my first ever Maiden album. I was flipping through the racks at a second-hand CD store and came across this album for a ridiculous price, but I need to check these guys out. I remember taking it home and flipping it on, going through the track and getting to the rhyme of the Ancient Mariner. I was in shock. Far from the evil incarnate that we'd been taught to believe in the 70s and 80s, this was epic poetic literature put to music. I was in love. And to this day, Rhyme of the Ancient Mariner gives me chills. If you haven't heard it, slap on this, check it out. And that brings us to the next in the classic era of Maiden albums, Somewhere in Time. Now we really need about 15 hours to do all this justice, but we're going to zero in on the second track, Wasted Years, penned by guitarist Adrian Smith. It's one of the most melodic and upbeat tracks Maiden have ever recorded. It speaks to those of us who mourn the past and things lost and left behind. It urges us not to miss the present and the opportunities in the moment. It has an absolutely phenomenal chorus. We're going to zero in on these lyrics. Check it out. So, understand. Don't waste your time always searching for those wasted years. Face up, make your stand, and realise you're living in the golden years. Life advice right there. Thanks, Maiden. Wasted Years is brilliant in the studio, but it has even more power live, and that brings me to my favourite Maiden memory ever. Despite the social and religious environment that I grew up around, my parents were massive fans of rock music. Throughout my years as a toddler, crawling around the floor and going to primary school later on, it was a constant soundtrack of 70s classic rock, as my parents flipped endless vinyls from Queen, Led Zepp, Deep Purple, Pink Floyd, Uriah Heep, my dad's favourite, Hendrix of course, The Beatles, Cream, Status Quo. As the decades evolved, my mum enjoyed the heavy rock of the 80s with me, and I introduced her to Maiden later in life. Then, in 2008, they announced they're coming to New Zealand on their Somewhere Back in Time tour. We had to go. It's one of the best memories of my life, seeing Maiden live for the first time, and seeing the joy on my mum's face, as together we're in awe. It's like the 80s never ended. 2 to 3 metre high flames, giant robot Eddies walking around the stage, endless backdrop and costume changes. It was epic. Sadly, 2 years later, my mum would pass away from brain cancer. But for the rest of my life, I have the memory of our time at a Maiden concert together. And in that moment, Wasted Years was an absolute highlight and a perfect sentiment for the journey that was before us. Thank you, Maiden, and thanks, Mum. And that brings us to Seventh Son of a Seventh Son, Maiden's classic semi-concept album. The band are brimming with creativity, and I just can't bear to pull out a single track in isolation. If you haven't heard this whole album, you need to stop right now, go and do that. It was inspired by Orson Scott Card's classic Seventh Son novel, a tale of the unique abilities inherited by the seventh son of a seventh son. There are songs like Only the Good Die Young, Can I Play With Madness, The Evil That Men Do. This album is brimming with epic tracks. Can I Play With Madness was the first proper Maiden song I ever heard. I can remember the moment to this day. I was at home working on my master's thesis, trying to finish off my degree, and I went out to the kitchen to make a cuppa. I actually had the radio on, which is rare for me. I'm an old school CD fan. Never listen to the radio. All the ads annoy me. Anyway, this day, radio was on. Came back in with my cuppa, and it was halfway through the solo. Jaw hits the floor. What is this? Who is this? Why don't I know this? I should be listening to this band all the time. Cranked it up even more and had my ear to the speaker waiting for the DJ to announce the band. Moments later it was, Ladies and Gentlemen, Can I Play With Madness by Iron Maiden. I was in love and I was hooked. Let's check out some of the opening lyrics to this epic track. Give me the sense to wonder if I'm free. Give me a sense of wonder to know I can be me. Give me the strength to hold my head up, spit it back in their face. Don't need no key to unlock this door. Gonna break down the walls and break out of This is what I love about Maiden and metal. It isn't endless crap about how many random strangers they've hooked up with or how big their overcompensating ego is. It's the stuff of life, the existential questions that animate all of us. And among the literary themes from Orson Scott Card's novel, there are statements about the cracks in society's mirror as they question why only the good die young or the evil that men do lives on and on. There's a suggestion here that things aren't as they should be. As Dickinson once told Kerrang in an interview about this album, it's about good and evil, heaven and hell. But then, isn't every Iron Maiden album? We'll reluctantly keep moving, but this album is totally unique in Maiden's catalogue and it's well worth a listen. Seventh son of a seventh son. And that brings us to the last two albums before Dickinson's leave of absence. No Prayer for the Dying includes an absolutely caustic assault on American televangelism, with the second track, Holy Smoke. It's written from Christ's point of view, looking down from the cross to the things that have been done in his name since. Check out these lyrics. Believe in me, send no money. You died on the cross and that ain't funny. But my so-called friends, they're making me a joke. They missed out what I said like I never spoke. They choose what they want to hear, they don't tell a lie. They just leave out the truth as they're watching you die, saving your soul by taking your money. It's caustic, it's brutal, but it's so perceptive and sadly true. We move from that opening hostility into the third and title track of the album, No Prayer for the Dying. One of the most beautiful but also mournful laments that Maiden have put to tape. It also includes one of the most beautiful guitar melodies on anywhere in Maiden's catalogue. We're going to have a look at that right now. Absolutely gorgeous and mournful, and the track ends with this heartfelt plea. God, give me the answer to my life. God, give me the answer to my prayers. God, give me the answer to my dreams. God, give me the answer to my prayer. This sort of stuff just rolls off the pages of every Maiden album. This one's no different. And that brings us to Fear of the Dark, Maiden's 9th album and Bruce's last for a while. The title track on this album is a classic example of Maiden's love of and expertise at the moody, haunting intro that then turns into a fist-pumping classic. That title track, along with Childhood's End and Afraid to Shoot Strangers, established another Maiden signature. It's the compositional approach of interspersing heavy lyrical themes. In this case, a song about a sniper about to end a tyrant's life, knowing that when he pulls the trigger, he's going to prevent the suffering of many, but he's taken a life no less, and he's wrestling with the weight of this choice. While they intersperse these sort of themes, then with infectious Celtic melodies and breakdowns. Let's check out some of the lyrics. God, let us go now and finish what's to be done. Thy kingdom come, thy shall be done on earth. Trying to justify to ourselves the reasons to go. Should we live and let live, forget or forgive? But how can we let them go on this way? The reign of terror, corruption must end. And we know deep down there's no other way. No trust, no reasoning, no more to say. Afraid to shoot strangers. Before we go on, we need to check out that Celtic breakdown. For the guitar fans out there, this song is textbook. Enjoy. In Dickinson's absence, Blaze Bayley really ably stepped up to the microphone for Maiden's next two albums, The X Factor and Virtual 11, and they produced some really great tracks. Two of my favourites are Sign of the Cross and The Klansman. But to avoid turning this into a 5-hour marathon, we're going to zero in on Dickinson's return and Maiden's latter era 6-album run that brings us up to the present. From Brave New World to The Dance of Death, Matter of Life and Death, to The Final Frontier, Book of Souls, and then Senjutsu, Maiden released more material in their resurgence than most bands record in their entire careers. Let's jump in first to Brave New World, where Dickinson comes roaring out of the speakers in fine form after an 8-year absence with the album's opening track, The Wicked Man. Say goodbye to gravity and say goodbye to death. Hello to eternity and live for every breath. Your time will come. And further down, one of my favourite lines, every second a new spark sets the universe aflame. What a return! confronting our own mortality, the inescapability of death, and the challenge of living with questions of eternity in mind. Bruce is back, and so is Maiden. A few tracks later, we get to the centerpiece song of this album, Blood Brothers. It's a reflection on the madness of our self-induced suffering as a species. And yet, despite all the pain and grief, we are in this together and we must find a way through. Check out some of these lyrics. There are times when I feel I'm afraid for the world. There are times I'm ashamed of us all. When you're floating on all the emotion you feel and reflecting the good and the bad. Will we ever know what the answer to life really is? Can you really tell me what life is? Maybe all the things that you know that are precious to you could be swept away by fate's own hand. We are blood brothers. I live all the way over in New Zealand. We're the first country to see daylight. The world's day starts here. But despite being so far away, it hasn't stopped Maiden coming. And in 2015, they were doing their Book of Souls tour. I found out they're going to be in Christchurch down the South Island where my cousin lives. Aaron and Hayley, top people, love you guys. So I sidled over to my wife and suggested it was high time we took our family on a holiday. We need to go for a long weekend. In fact, let's go down the South Island. Let's go to Christchurch. Got my cousin down there. We haven't seen them for ages. Everyone gets on really well. It'll be a great trip. Oh, and by the way, I might just need to pop out for a little while on Saturday night, because Iron Maiden's coming. Carla was awesome. We went down, did the trip, had a great time with my cousins, and on Saturday night, I slipped out to the Horncastle Arena with 40,000 other fans for an evening of Iron Maiden, and Blood Brothers was one of the highlights of the night. I will never forget being in a room with a bunch of other metal fans, black t-shirts, long hair, the works, chanting the chorus to the song. It was a moment of unity in the community of metal that I'll never forget. Moments like that restore our faith in humanity. The album closes with more huge tracks. Out of the Silent Planet, based on C.S. Lewis's novel, and The Thin Line Between Love and Hate, which wrestles with the choices people make. Why does one choose evil and another choose good? Yet all of us have the potential to be a curse or a blessing to those around us. Either way though, there's a thin line between love and hate, a wider divide that you can see between good and bad. There's a grey space between black and white, but everyone does have the right to choose the path that he takes. It's a beast of an album and a triumphant return for Bruce. And from there, Maiden have gone from strength to strength. We're going to skip ahead a little and cut in on a matter of life and death. It opens with A Different World. It's a classic high quality Maiden rocker and lyrically really similar sentiment to Wasted Years, urging us to grab the moment we're in and the opportunities that are before us. Check it out. Tell me what you can hear and then tell me what you see. Everybody has a different way to view the world. I would like you to know when you see the simple things to appreciate this life. It's not too late to live. Really channels the vibe of Wasted Years. It was so uplifting. Great opening to a great album. This album's full of gold, but it's the later tracks that just glow. We're going to take a deeper dive into For the Greater Good of God. Begins with this intro. Are you a man of peace or a man of holy war? Too many sides to you, don't know which anymore. So many full of life, but also filled with pain. Don't know just how many will live to breathe again. Don't know just how many will live to breathe again. A life that's made to breathe destruction or defense. A mind that's vain corruption, bad or good intent. A wolf in sheep's clothing, or saintly a sinner. Or some that would believe a holy war winner. Obviously the song's dealing with religion and its bad and good effects on society. What a great opening question. Are you a man of peace or a man of holy war? Then we shortly come to the haunting bridge which pleads. Please tell me now what life is. Please tell me now what love is. Well, tell me now what war is. Again, tell me what life is. And the core thesis of the song is made really clear in the closing lines of the fourth verse. It brings upon us more of famine, death and war. You know, religion has a lot to answer for. Then there's a twist at the end. He gave his life for us. He fell upon the cross to die for all of those who would never mourn his loss. It wasn't meant for us to feel the pain again. Tell me why. Tell me why. Despite the perversions and horrors that religion's brought to this planet and all the horrendous things that have been done in God's name, this is exactly the opposite of what Christ stood for and why he died. And Maiden are telling us here there's a very important baby that shouldn't be thrown out with any of the bathwater. Maiden's next albums add to their growing and increasingly experimental legacy. You get on The Final Frontier some absolute rockers, but you also get some really different tracks like Where the Wild Wind Blows with its crazy tale of preppers waiting the apocalypse. And then that brings us to the mighty Book of Souls. This album has everything from massive rockers like Red and Black, Death or Glory, through to a really touching tribute to Robin Williams and Tears of a Clown. And the album ends with Maiden's longest song ever, an 18-minute epic called The Empire of the Clouds. It's a tour de force of the cost of human pride and hubris, and it's replete with a 6.5-minute piano introduction played by Bruce Dickinson himself. It's colossal and worthy of a whole episode just on its own. You have never heard Maiden like this, and if you don't know this track, you owe it to yourself. Well, we're near the end of the session. What could be left after all of this? Well, a whole other album in fact. Maiden's 17th studio album, Senjutsu. If you can't tell, I'm a massive fan of this album. The first single was The Writing on the Wall, and uncharacteristically for Maiden opens with acoustic guitars, instantly setting a real deserted gulch cowboy type vibe. We're going to check that out before we get into the lyrics. Callback to that 80s wanted dead or alive cowboy vibe, which is the reason I got into guitar in the first place, but that's a whole other story. Now we'll start to get into the lyrics. From here it settles into this brilliant classic rock vibe. And it splinters off in all sorts of directions. Let's take a look together. Lyrically, Maiden are riffing on an ancient biblical tale where God scrawls the king's doom on the wall with a disembodied hand. Maiden pick up that motif here but turn the mirror on society, our era, our time, and the pain, the greed, the tribalism and the suffering that we seem intent on breeding. And they ask too whether we can see the writing on the wall. Maiden set the scene with the desert of history and all the empires that lie in the dust there, and refer to those that have gone before and given their lives so we can live now. And then they say this: now we are victorious, we have become our slaves. Our increasing mastery of technology has given us these digital devices that connect to and contain the digital universe. But instead of freeing us, we have become the slaves. We have enslaved ourselves. Have you seen the writing on the wall? Have you seen that writing? Can you see the riders of the storm? Can you see them riding? Can you see them riding next to you? The riders of the apocalypse aren't just coming, we're bringing them, riding alongside them. This is a self-inflicted mess. What's it gonna take to wake us up? Holding on to fury, is that all we ever know? Ignorance our judge and jury, all we've got to show? From Hollywood to Babylon, holy war to kingdom come, on a trail of dust and ashes when the burning sky is done. A tide of change is coming, and that is what you fear. The earthquakers are coming, but you don't want to hear. You're just too blind to see. We've created a culture of digital outrage, with superficial readings of people's intent and motives. We worship brands and celebrities, and we're entertaining ourselves on the way to the grave. Can we see the writing on the wall? It's thought-provoking, sobering stuff. And the album's just getting started. We're going to jump into the closing track, Hell on Earth, one of my favourite Maiden songs ever. It's Maiden at their most reflective and most potent, musically and lyrically. The vibe and feel of the song's incredible. We're going to check that out as our final track in this session. It opens with these words: beginning of a sunrise bores a big hole in the sky, not to reason why, that armed children are in this world, and fighting in the name of God's way, mourning bleak and utter waste. The vanity of the world is assured. Something's gone terribly wrong in the world. The sun should rise on a new dawn of hope and possibility and opportunity. Yet we find terrorist armies recruiting children as soldiers. How did we get here? For those of us that are the current adults and parents on the planet, there's better things to be arming our kids with than guns or social media and entitled hate. Arm them with emotional intelligence, critical thinking, understanding and empathy, and a love of art and music. All of the resources of history are at our fingertips. It could be so different. That's why those that went before willingly made the sacrifices they did. Let's not let that go to waste. I wish I could go back. We'll never be the same again. Bleed for all upon this hell on earth. We all lose our innocence here, yet we all strive for more, hope for more. Is it futile? Will things ever change? And when I leave this world, I hope to see you again, on the other side of hell on earth. Upon the eyes of good, I'm following the light again, and between the dark of hell on earth. On the other side, I'll see again heaven, so far away from this hell on earth. Perhaps beyond the grave there is peace, as we escape the curse that brings this hell on earth. Upon the eyes of good, I'm following the light again. There is hope. Choose the path of light that lies between the dark of hell on earth. Travelling through Maiden's catalogue is a trip through the greats of history, literature and philosophy, as well as highlighting some of the worst of humanity, religion, society and politics. It's a story of hope lost and opportunities missed, but hope nonetheless. It's sorrow, not cynicism. Life here could be heaven on earth, but we insist on creating hell instead. Will we someday get past our own egos and greed and grab the potential to realise heaven on earth here together? We do a lot in God's name, but seldom follow his way. There are those who've shown the way, but ultimately the choice is ours. And that, along with a truckload of harmonised thirds and a signature heavy metal gallop, is the gospel according to Iron Maiden. Maiden released more albums in the latter part of their career than most bands release in their entire wow. Ladies and gentlemen, that was Iron Maiden, seventh son of a seventh son. No, it wasn't. It was Kenny and I Play With Madness. Poor stomping gallop and its epic lyrics. The trooperistic man, it's Maiden's tribute to the occultic world of Aleister Crowley and the dark environment stuff of legend.